Welcome back to another episode of the Association Spotlight Series. I'm Lake Morehouse, and I'm joined today by our good friend Durand Warren. Durand, thanks for taking the time and driving up and seeing us.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Of course. You just want to tell the folks a little bit what you do, your title, and organization you're with.
Yep, I'm Durand Warren. I am with Williamson Health Wellness Center, and I am the Director of Behavioral Medicine. So Williamson Health Wellness Center is in the FQHC, and I was brought on board to create the Behavioral Health Division, and we actually done that through a grant through SAMHSA to create a MAT department, which I done, and then we was blessed enough to get a CCBHC grant. And then after that, we expanded into many avenues of behavioral health. I mean, that CCBHC grant really helped us get into children's services, which was really the primary goal for us. We kind of just started in the MAT space, but we always wanted to be integrative, and CCBHC allowed us to do that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so it sounds like the wheels are really rolling down there.
Yeah.
Things are opening up. That's great.
Yeah.
How excuse me, how long have you been at Williamson?
I've been there 5 years.
5 years, okay. What was your first position starting out there?
My first position was, I started out as a master's level therapist for Logan Mingo Area Mental Health, so community mental health, which is, the really tough work.
Sure.
So I started out there as a master's level counselor, was there, and my clinical director there, John Mays, he stayed for a couple years, and after he left, I actually was promoted into his position. It's ironic because John Mays kind of fought for me to get my first job.
Oh, wow.
And so when he left, Donna Cook, she became the CEO, and she ended up promoting me into John's job, which to me was really humbling.
Oh, yeah.
For somebody who fought for you to get on board, and then I ended up filling his shoes. So I became clinical director there. I wrote an array of programs during that time. Donna was very adamant that she didn't want to be grant dependent. We wanted to create more billable services. So I was able to get that experience writing programs and building services. And I stayed there. I was at Logan Mingo for five and a half years. And I was clinical director for 2 of those years. And then I went to Williamson Health and Wellness Center, which Williamson is in my backyard. I'm a Williamson boy, so I'm able to walk to work now. So it just
works out perfectly.
Yeah, it just worked out.
Yeah, well, that's much deserved. And how have you kind of seen the evolution of behavioral health, progress down in the rural part of the southern part of the state, maybe in these areas of West Virginia? Have you kind of seen it over time change?
Yeah, well, what I've seen over time is just that with substance use especially, it's just, you do everything you can to combat it. We started out, we was in the opioid epidemic, and that was where we kind of created our space. Even with billable services, it was, opioids. Now we've saw it evolve more into a substance epidemic, because now we're in a methamphetamine epidemic and fentanyl, and I mean, it's just polysubstance all over the place.
Yeah, it's almost like whack-a-mole. Once you kind of get something under control a little bit better, then a new drug or substance pops up, and you're like, oh man, it's always on your toes, right?
Always evolving, and you're always looking for ways. And I think the biggest thing for Southern West Virginia that I've seen, as far as positive wise, is that the facilities there have become more integrated.
Okay.
They've become more one-stop shops, to where you can do substance use and be treated for a co-occurring mental health disorder. Also get your primary care there, plus dentistry, plus kids will be seen there. So I think that's a huge, huge plus, is that Southern West Virginia, I felt like, was kind of lacking that. And so most of the places I've seen have really moved toward integrative care.
That's great, especially as we know, in rural parts of the state, not just southern, but sometimes you can be an hour and a half drive from a place you need to be in. You're splitting up services that you need. That just causes an extra strain almost on the whole process.
It does, and the other part of it is that the part that I love is that I see a lot of partnerships being developed. It used to be kind of people operated in silos, And now you see more to where it's not really a competition. I think people are just jumping in and doing what they can.
Sure.
And not trying to duplicate services and really being good stewards of the money that they've been given, and protecting grants and trying to stretch those funds as far as they can by partnering up with other organizations.
That's great. Yeah, just a collaborative effort across,
Yes.
and let's all be on the same team.
Yes.
We have to. It's not.
I mean, it's enough work to go around for everybody. Actually, too much.
Yeah.
Because we're in a workforce shortage to where we can't find workers, especially when you start talking about licensed individuals and degreed individuals. When you're in the southern part of the state, it gets tough.
Sure. Oh, I bet so. Yeah, we're working on that daily, and it's a battle. I know it's it's not just West Virginia too; it's nationwide. We were just out of the national conference in California last month, and we knew it was happening. But when you talk to other people from Minnesota and other states, it's not comforting, but it's also nice to know that, hey, we're not on an island. Everyone else has experienced this workforce crisis bad.
Was it shocking for you all to be able to see that? You know what I mean? To feel like it was not just West Virginia, but
it opened your eyes, especially because you consider more of a southern state, more of a rural state, whatever it may be, and then you hear of these, northern, way far away, Minnesota's and Wisconsin and out west, Oregon, things like that. Like, oh yeah, it's just we're getting crushed. So it's eye opening, and it's really nationwide. So we're trying, and we're gonna keep at it, of course. What was your story kind of before you got into behavioral health, and kind of your journey before that?
That's a pretty long one.
Sure.
Well, I come from humble beginnings, I like to say, and I'm a late bloomer.
Yep.
But all I have to say, everything that I went through was self-inflicted. I don't blame anybody for my stumblings and falling short, but for me it was just I kind of went off to college as a young man at 18, man, and not really having those boundaries. Got involved with some people that I really should have never got involved with, and ended up, I was going to college during the day, and at night I was out on street corners selling narcotics. And for me, it didn't add up for me, business sense wise. It didn't add up that I'm paying thousands to sit in a classroom, and I'm sitting here. Back then we had pagers, and my pager's going off and I'm missing $500 and $600. And at 18, 19, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Your frontal lobe is not even fully developed to even make good decisions.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I kept watching my grade point average drop because I wasn't focused on what I was doing in school. And eventually, I thought that I was making the right business decision, and I left. I left college to be a full-time criminal. Eventually, I left Huntington and moved back to Williamson. And I would imagine I was in Williamson maybe 2.5 years, and federal agents knocked on my door and told me, man, we got an indictment for you. And I had to go answer that indictment and was sentenced to 87 months in federal prison. And I went and I served my time, and I would walk around the prison campus, and I would always be like, God, why am I here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not a dumb guy. I'm not a bad guy.
Right.
How did I end up here? And I would do this for hours on end, just walking and really just in my thoughts. And it took me a long time to really accept where I was. And doing that, man, I came home, and I had got a barber's license in there, and I ended up working at a barber shop, and eventually worked my way to where me and my wife bought that shop.
Oh, wow.
We kept it open for a few years, but a lawyer friend of mine was speaking to me, and he was like, man, you got some college under your belt, Durand. You really need to go back to college. Man, because if you don't, recidivism rates, it's likely you're going to end up back in prison.
Yeah.
I was watching guys go back that had came out when I came out. I was watching some family members go back, and it was like in that moment I had an epiphany of like, and he's right. And so I went, enrolled, and I went to a counselor, and I wanted to be a nurse,
Okay.
ironically, for the money.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I got to make some money, man.
Sure.
And nurses was making good money.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, I want to enroll to be a nurse. And while I'm talking to this counselor, she starts telling me a story about her and her family. I mean, deep stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and she's crying. And she's like, Durand, you're not a nurse. You're a counselor.
Oh, right there.
And I'm like, no, I'm a nurse. Trust me.
Right.
They make good money.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're a counselor. I'm like, well, sign me up for the test. And I go take the test. I pass. And I go back to kind of show her my test result. And I'm like, I told you I was a nurse. And
Yeah.
she's like, Durand, I'm telling you, you're a counselor. And so I went to my acceptance interview, and I ended up telling them it was something about me being a convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
And either way, something happened, and I had been torn by what she had kept telling me. Like, I had kept just praying and like,
Mm-hmm.
Lord, is she telling me what's right? Because my initial pursuit of education was psychology.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's where my passion was.
Right. Right.
And so the lady who is there for the nursing that's going to accept me, she starts crying and she's like, I can't let you into my program. And she's crying and she's like, this is the first time I've ever had to do this. And I'm like, don't cry. God just gave me my answer. I'm not a nurse. I'm a counselor.
There you go.
So I go across campus and I enroll at Lindsey Wilson College, and I end up going through and getting my bachelor's degree. I am rolled over to get my master's degree. I got my master's degree, and John Mays promised me a job. I told him about my background, which he and the CEO at the time didn't see eye to eye because
Okay.
I was a convicted felon.
Sure. Yeah.
And John fought like crazy to get me on board.
Wow.
And he gave me a job, and I went to Donna. At that time, she had become CEO, and I said, I just feel like I need more. I was going to go get a doctorate degree. And she said, I wouldn't do that. I would go get an MBA.
Okay.
And so 2 weeks later, I was enrolled in the University of Pikeville,
Yep.
and I went back and got my second master's degree in business administration. And
Nice.
so here I sit, man, and I have
Wow.
to say this, that there's nothing special about me. You know what I mean? There's I am just blessed.
Yep.
And God has put people around me that have wanted to see me thrive for whatever that reason that may be.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been blessed to have good people guide my career. I mean, my current CEO, Dino Beckett. I mean, he has put me in situations to thrive, and I've just been blessed along the way. But there's nothing special about me, and every time I tell my story, I want people to understand that it's nothing about me. It is only about you doing the work and making the changes in your life to be able to do that. And I always tell people, it's natural when people are trying to help themselves for people to stick their hand out to help.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
As long
Yeah.
as you're making the right changes and doing the right thing.
People can see that.
Yes.
And they want to be a part of it.
Yes. And that's how I sit here today, man. And
Wow.
There's nothing that no one did to me. It was me just making poor choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get out of my own way to be able to thrive. And I've just learned to do that. And here I am.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, inspiring, and the perseverance there. You know, it's like while I agree with you, I'm also going to disagree. That I think you got something special because all these people kept seeing in the inside of you, and you have something about that people knew, and they kept going to bat for you, and then hey, here you are, and they were right, and it worked out.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't like to take credit for that. I
Sure.
think it's just, and I think it's a mixture of learning how to survive in a dysfunctional environment. When you're moving amongst people in a criminal lifestyle, you have to learn how to be a speaker, a negotiator, and it's a hard knock education.
Yep.
And then you have to combine that and learn how to tame that and bring those skills into a professional environment.
Yeah.
And combine that with an education. But as far as when I told you before, I would walk around and say, God, why am I here? And the reality is, it took years before he gave me revelation, but I had to be there to be able to touch the population and do the things that I do in my professional life.
Right.
In my professional career, I had to go through those things. I truly believe that I had to be there and make those poor choices, and I don't believe that anything happens by chance.
Right. Sure.
I think it's all in his divine plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he finally gave me revelation 10, 15 years later, when I moved into the space of substance use disorder.
Yeah. Sure.
So
yeah, it's almost like you can't have the light without the dark sometimes, and it sounds like, I think maybe this could be a testament to anyone has a past, have gone through similar issues like that, and now have gone on to be successful and get out of the rut. But it sounds like you don't suppress it. You don't act like it never happened, that period. You don't talk about it. You acknowledge it, and you've worked and you've made peace with it almost in a way. It seems like you've kind of used that as your superpower, almost in a strength to keep you going. You haven't. Some people kind of squash it down there and they hide it and they act like it never happened. But it sounds like you're doing the opposite, which is proven.
I think you have to. I think you have to acknowledge and you have to use it all of us. I don't care who you are. I always say everyone has a story.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think it's what you do with that story. And all of us have experienced something traumatic,
Yep.
And regardless if it's at our own choosing or at the hands of someone else. But, I can either let that destroy me, or I can let it make me rise up.
Yep.
And, I just choose the latter, to let it make me rise up. I agree. I can't suppress it. I refuse to. But you're right. There are people out there who are just like me that have gone on to be successful, and I hope that they do understand that they had to go through what they went through to be able to be where they are, and not hold a seed of bitterness towards that, those hurdles they had to get through to get where they are.
Right.
It's all a lesson, and it's all at his guided hand, man.
Of course, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I guess we could just circle back and we'll kind of close with this. What would we maybe say to some folks that are younger people, maybe not even younger, but that are new to the behavioral health industry in West Virginia, that are interested in it, want to get into a field of how could we what would you maybe give them advice for to, this is a meaningful field. It's very rewarding. It's hard work, but it's important work. What would you make, again, combating this workforce crisis?
To add to that, because everything you said is very true. The one thing that I tell my people that work under me and work alongside me is find a mentor.
Okay. Yeah.
I think mentorship is so important.
Sure.
And to not just find a mentor, but find one that you truly trust.
Yeah.
One that can guide you and teach you the right way, that teach you professional ethics. One that you can listen to. And the other thing is to be open to accept feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's tough for people to hear constructive criticism, and especially younger people.
Yep.
Where, they think that they're going to do it all the right way. None of us do it the right way, and I've been fortunate enough to have people to go before me that have taught me professional ethics, and I'm still learning today, what I mean? But for me, I look at the people that I come across when I sit in those rooms in there. I look across and I see the CEOs in that room that have been carrying this torch for an extremely long time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are the people that I look across the room, because, I've been in this 10 years, and that's fairly young.
Yeah.
When I look across the room and I see how long some of the people that have been doing this, and I'm grateful to be in those rooms. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very, very appreciative to the work that they have done, and the time that they have spent trying to make West Virginia a better place.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us, Durand. It's an awesome one, man.
I appreciate it.
You've earned it, no doubt.
I appreciate you having me down, man.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks. Follow us on social media, please, if you can. We'll have the links in our video. And again, Durand Warren, thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it.